Good morning or good afternoon, should I say, to everybody. My name is Caroline Gillett. We're really pleased to have you joining us today for our International Women's Day event, which is focused around PCOS and the pill. We are a research group which are based at the University of Birmingham in the Institute of Metabolism and Systems Research, the IMSR. Anu, who's one of our panelists, is also based the Applied Health Institute as well, so I do need to reference them. But alongside our researchers, we also have a leadership program for women who have PCOS called our DAISY-PCOS leadership program. And both our research project and that public engagement program are funded through the Wellcome Trust. So I want to give a shout out to our funder there. But today's event is really just about starting a conversation about PCOS and the pill. It's a 75-minute event. So in reality, you know, it's very, we're very limited on how much we can talk about within that space of time. So we've got to kind of get the conversation going, but we acknowledge up front that there'll be many questions that we won't be able to answer within the space of this event, but hopefully in the future we can run future activities and events similar if this is of interest to people. But we chose this theme because we get a lot of questions about PCOS and the pill, and so we thought it was important that we tried to open up that conversation and start that dialogue. I want to just say, obviously, today's event is meant to be as inclusive as possible. So we, of course, encourage men, women, trans, everybody to be here at today's event. And we use the term women, but we use it in the most inclusive sense possible when we're talking about PCOS and women. So it's my real pleasure now to introduce Sophie and Simone, who are two of our DAISY-PCOS leaders, and they've been really instrumental actually at pulling together today's event. One final thing I did want to say is it would be fabulous to know where you're tuning in from. So if you're willing to do so, do pop in the chat where you're coming in from, and later in the Q&A, we encourage you to put your questions into the Q&A section rather than the chat, just so that we can keep things streamlined from our perspective. But without further ado, we hope you're going to enjoy the event, and I pass over to Sophie and Simone.
Thank you, Caroline. I'll just get some slides up. Okay. Can you see my shared slides? Thank you. So thanks, Caroline, and welcome everyone to our event today on PCOS and the pill for International Women's Day next week. It's really nice to see so many people have joined, so thank you for tuning in. And for the next hour, as Caroline has introduced, we hope to start a discussion on the practicalities, the pros and cons, and the perception of the pill in society within the context of polycystic ovary syndrome. We want to provide some information, open a dialogue, and hear about your own experiences. And we hope that by the end of it, you'll feel that we've achieved this. So briefly on polycystic ovary syndrome, PCOS and the pill, I'm assuming most people here know a little bit about it. That's probably why you're tuning in. But we just wanted to go over some of the key information that will be relevant to the talk. So it's a metabolic condition, and in fact, the most common metabolic condition in women, affecting 1%, not quite 10% of us. It has impacts that go throughout the whole life cycle, not just during reproduction. And it's characterized by androgen excess. Androgens are a type of hormone that are found in all people, but are typically found in higher concentrations in males. This excess of these androgens are what causes some of the complications and some of the problems within polycystic ovary syndrome, and are something that we'll talk about throughout this session. So here is a diagram of some of the both visible and hidden signs of PCOS. I'll talk about some of the visible ones before handing over to Simone with the hidden ones. Some of the common things that we experience are acne, hair growth on parts of the body, but thinning of hair on the head, weight gain, as well as dark patches in skin folds like under the armpits. But there are also many hidden impacts as well, which Simone will talk about.
So as you can see from the photo, there are increased risk. There is an increased risk of a metabolic syndrome, which is where blood sugar is raised, blood pressure is also raised. The good cholesterol is in low levels and bad cholesterol is in high levels. This also increases the risk of non-alcoholic fatty liver and also weight gain linked from insulin resistance. Insulin is a hormone that manages the amount of glucose we have in the bloodstream. The glucose is found in food, and blood glucose levels rise once we've eaten. So insulin is released by the pancreas, and it is the job of the insulin to help the glucose enter the cells to use for energy or store later. So insulin resistance is when the body's tissues are resistant to the effect of the insulin and don't allow glucose to enter the cells as we expect. The prevalence of insulin resistance is really high with people with PCOS due to an increase in androgen levels. And androgens are hormones that are usually thought of male hormones, but female bodies produce small amounts as well. This terminology is a terminology that we want to move away from as part of discussions that we've had in sessions with the other DAISY-PCOS leaders, because we feel that it gives out the wrong message when you label hormones as male or female. They're affecting everyone in different ways. Androgens reduce sensitivity to insulin, so therefore there's more glucose in the blood for longer, which will lead to symptoms of hypoglycemia such as excessive thirst, hunger, feeling hungry after a meal, increased urination and feeling more tired than usual, and resulting in carb cravings and therefore weight gain. And it can also exacerbate symptoms such as the visible signs such as poor ovulation and poor sleep. So we've got a few questions for you today. I'm just going to put the link in the chat. So this is just 10 questions which I'll go through, and if you click onto the link after it there, it's true, false. It's true, false, or don't know. Sorry, try and get it closer. So I'm just going to share this. So you'll still have access to the form, so you don't have to do it whilst I'm reading them, and you can come back to them. Can you see this? So the first question: are women with PCOS diagnosed with type 2 diabetes earlier than women without PCOS? True, false, or don't know. Second question: the contraceptive pill is prescribed just to stop pregnancy. If anyone's got their hand up or have any questions, if one of the panelists can just shout out, because I can't see the questions at the moment whilst I'm sharing. Question 2. There are 2 types of contraceptive pills. One contains 2 hormones and the other contains 1 hormone. True or false? Or if you don't know, obviously put that down. So next question. Pills which are made up of the same hormones are taken in the same way. So this question we mean if you've got 2 different brands of hormone, the pills, and they have 2 types of hormones in each, are they taken in the same way? So are they taken at the same time, the amount of tablets? And that, so obviously true or false, or if you don't know, just pop that on there. So the next question: the risk of a blood clot using the pill is higher than the risk of a blood clot in pregnancy. I know I might be going a bit too fast potentially, but like I say, you've still got the link to to the form, and as we go through the rest of the presentations, you can carry on filling those in. So next question is, if you experience side effects such as nausea and breast tenderness, this indicates that contraceptive pills are unsuitable for you. If you think that's true, obviously click true. False, click false. And if you're not sure, you can press don't know. So following on to the next question, in the UK, the contraceptive pill is free. So just jot down whether you think that's true or false, or not sure. The levels of hormones in contraceptive pills have decreased over time. True, false, or don't know. This is something, again, we'll touch upon. And the reasons behind this question, again, is linked to the effects that the pill can have on everyone that take it. So next question, the use of contraceptive pills can reduce the risk of developing ovarian and endometrial cancer. True, if you think that's true, then just pop that in. And again, we'll be touching on this in a bit. And finally, strong statement, the contraceptive pill can cure PCOS. And again, we'll recap on this as we're going through. And I'll just exit there and I'll stop. Sorry, I couldn't see any questions. Is anybody got any questions about the form, or any issues with the form? I'll take the silence as in the chat as no. But like I say, we're going to be going over the presentations, so you'll be able to pick up some things, but we'll also go in through the answer at the end. So if there's something that you still haven't picked up on, you'll be able to see what the answers are. So you can carry on filling those out at your leisure throughout the session, but I'm now going to hand over to Thais, who's an endocrinologist, researcher, and also DAISY-PCOS team member.
Can you all see my screen?
Thais, we can't hear you though. Maybe you've got to check your mic.
We could hear you just a second ago, Rose, so that's a bit odd.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, brilliant. So hello everyone. Sorry for the disruption. So thank you for joining us today. We are glad to have so many people from different parts of the globe. This is nice. I hope you enjoy this event. In my presentation, I will explain to you how the pill can be useful in treating some PCOS symptoms. So before starting, it's important to clarify that there are two major groups of contraceptive pills out there. So we have what it's called the progesterone-only pills, also called mini pills. And we also have the combined contraceptive pills, which are the ones that we'll be discussing during this presentation. As per its name, the progesterone-only pill contains only one hormone, which is called progestin. But the combined pills, the focus of our presentation, contains two kinds of hormones, as we can see for this image. So they contain estrogen and progestins. Despite being produced for contraceptive purposes, the combined pills are currently the best option available for treating PCOS. And this is because of the non-contraceptive effects of the pills, which I'm going to explain to you today. But before exploring the non-contraceptive properties of the pills, I would like to explain to you how each compound of the pill works. So let's start with the estrogens, which are represented on the left side. So the estrogens can be divided into first, second, and third generation ones. The first generation estrogen is called ethinylestradiol and is the most common estrogen in the pills commercialized not only in the UK, but all around the world. As a second generation estrogen, we have what is called estradiol valerate and 17-beta estradiol. This is what we call a bioidentical estradiol because they are derived from the natural estrogen produced by our ovaries. As a third generation estrogen, we have estetrol, an estrogen that is also bioidentical, but it's more selective than the second generation estradiol and have been recently approved for commercialization in the US and in Europe. How the different kinds of these estrogens, so first, second, and third generation, influence the treatment of the PCOS symptoms will depend on the capacity that they have to increase the production of proteins by the liver. But don't worry that I will explain this to you in the next slides. So let's now move to the progestins here on the right side of the figure. So as we can see, we have a spectrum of progestins available. The progestins differ among themselves according to their androgenic activity. So what is this androgenic activity? It's their capacity of stimulating or blocking the testosterone receptor. So progestins may vary from those with androgenic activity, such as a progestin called levonorgestrel, to those with strong anti-androgenic activity, such as drospirenone and cyperteron acetate. We also have those progestins that we call neutral, which are dienogest, clomarginone, and gestodin. So here in this picture, I would just like to illustrate the reason behind so many combined pill options are present out there. So this is because different combinations of estrogen types and concentrations with a progestin will correspond to a different combined pill. So as we can see, when we look at the estrogen concentration, we have pills that contain 20 micrograms of ethinylestradiol. We have pills that contain 30 micrograms, and we have pills with 35 micrograms. And those pills can be combined, those doses of ethinylestradiol can be combined with different progestins with different androgenic activities. And for a woman, not only a woman with PCOS, but also for a woman without PCOS, it's important to know how she can benefit from the different kinds of pills. So now that we are familiar with the two components of the pills, we will explore how they can help both estrogens and progestins, how they can help on treating PCOS symptoms. But before reaching that point, let's just remember some things. Let's just highlight some aspects of the Polycystic Ovary Syndrome. So first of all, as Simone and Sophie mentioned, testosterone is the main hormone involved in the PCOS symptoms. And testosterone circulates in our body in two ways, as we can see here from this picture. So we have a testosterone that is bound to a protein, which is called SHBG, and a testosterone that it's not bound, which is the free testosterone. So the testosterone that it's bound, it's not active. Only the free testosterone is active, which means only the free testosterone is capable of causing the androgen excess symptoms like excess body hair, acne, and alopecia. So in women with PCOS, it is common to find a decreased production of the bind protein SHBG by the liver, which will result in more free testosterone circulating. So we will have less testosterone bind, so we'll have more free testosterone circulating. This free testosterone will act on the pituitary gland and will lead to more increased levels of a hormone called LH. And LH will stimulate the ovaries to produce testosterone in excess. So a disruption in the secretion of LH and FSH, which is a hormone that I didn't represent here, also results in an accumulation of immature follicles in the ovaries. And when those immature follicles are visualized through ultrasound, the ovaries will have a polycystic appearance due to the presence of these follicles, okay? So now we just seen what is going on in a woman with PCOS. So now in the next slide, we will see, okay, so what happens when a woman with PCOS takes the combined pill? So let's first look into the action of the estrogen component of the pill. The estrogen component of the pill will increase the production of the protein, the SHBG, by the liver, which means that we will have more bound testosterone and less free testosterone, which is the active testosterone circulating. All the three kinds of estrogens available in the combined pills, they increase the SHBG production. But the first generation estrogens have a higher effect on increasing SHBG when compared to the second and third generation ones. So now let's see how the progestins act on the PCOS. So the progestin component of the pill acts on inhibiting the secretion of LH by the pituitary gland. So then this will result not only in the blockage of the ovulation, but and then consequently a normalization of the ovaries appearance in the ultrasound, but this will also significantly decrease the testosterone production by the ovaries. So based on these properties, the combined properties of estrogens and progestins in the pill, we are able to decrease the circulating levels of testosterone. And this is how the pills can help. They can help by significantly improving the symptoms of testosterone excess, like the body hair, the alopecia, which is the hair loss, and the acne. The pills, apart from that, the pills also promote regular periods. And as I've mentioned, they normalize the appearance of the ovaries on the ultrasound. So in addition to these visible improvements of the PCOS symptoms, actually the improvement of the visible PCOS symptoms, the pills also offer benefits to women's health that are invisible to our eyes. And so for these ones, I will hand over this presentation to my colleague Anu, who is going to explore this topic a bit more with us. Thank you.
Hi everyone, I'm Anuradha Subramanian from Institute of Applied Health Research at the University of Birmingham. As Thais just mentioned, the benefits of the pill, especially for women with PCOS, is not necessarily restricted to visible PCOS symptoms. We know that women with PCOS have invisible long-term effects that tend to go unnoticed, such as an increased risk of hypertension or an increased risk of diabetes or development of dysglycemia, so on and so forth. And the pill actually helps and are beneficial in terms of reducing the effects of these long-term, lifelong effects as well. We have proved evidence, we have conclusive evidence that the pill actually reduces the effect of endometrial cancer. And I will also be presenting a study specifically that we conducted where we found that pill can potentially reduce the risk of developing type 2 diabetes and dysglycemia in women with PCOS. So let me just go on to the presentation. I'm not sharing my screen now. Okay, so in collaboration with the Institute of Metabolism and Systems Research researchers, we performed a study where we looked at women with PCOS, and we wanted to first see if they were at an increased risk of type 2 diabetes and dysglycemia. And once we established this increased risk, we wanted to also further see if pill was effective in any way at all in reducing this increased risk of dysglycemia. Now, moving on to how we actually conducted the study. So this was a retrospective matched controlled study, retrospective in the sense that this study was conducted using data that we already collected using the Health Improvement Network database. So this database, the Health Improvement Network, is actually a primary care database, which is representative of 7% of the UK population. And this was representative of women in terms of their age, in terms of the geographic diversity, and so on and so forth. And the study period was, we obtained this data from January 2000 to January 2017. And as you can see here, what we did was we identified a cohort of women with PCOS. So we identified nearly 64,000 women with PCOS who were registered with a general practice in the UK. And we matched them to women without PCOS in terms of their age and the general practice that they were registered to. So we matched them to over 120,000 women without PCOS. And then we followed them up in time. We wanted to see how many of these women with PCOS developed dysglycemia, that is type 2 diabetes or pre-diabetes, and how many of the women without PCOS developed dysglycemia, that is type 2 diabetes and pre-diabetes. And as you can see, women without pre-diabetes, only 2.34% of them developed dysglycemia over a follow-up of 3.4 years. Whereas over a similar follow-up period, women with PCOS, there was nearly 4.5% of them developed dysglycemia. So you can see that there was twice the increased risk. So 2.3% in women without PCOS, whereas 4.5% in women with PCOS. So there was nearly twice the increased risk. We also know that because it's a retrospective cohort study, there could potentially be confounders in this association between PCOS and the risk of dysglycemia. So we also adjusted for a few confounders that can predispose women to the increased risk of dysglycemia. So what are these confounders? Like age, ethnicity, the socioeconomic deprivation, the body mass index, the lifestyle variables like smoking status or any other concurrent diagnosis of any other conditions like hypothyroidism and dyslipidemia or high cholesterol levels and so on. So we adjusted for all these covariates and we still found that there was twice an increased risk of type 2 diabetes and dysglycemia among women with PCOS compared to women without PCOS. Next, we wanted to see if this increased risk was persistent across all BMI subgroup of women, or was it just an effect that was observed in a specific BMI subgroup of women. So we then moved on to see, we performed subgroup analysis of women who were in the BMI range above 30 kilogram per meter squared, and then women in the BMI range 25 to 30 kilogram per meter squared, and then women in the BMI range less than 25 kilogram per meter squared. And we observed consistently there was an increased risk of type 2 diabetes among women with PCOS compared to women without PCOS. So irrespective of the BMI status that they had, there was something within PCOS, within the PCOS mechanism that was predisposing these women to an increased risk of diabetes or a metabolic abnormality. So then we moved on to see if pill can potentially benefit at all for women with PCOS. So as you can see, so we performed a nested case control study. So from the first study that we conducted, we had nearly 2,407 women who developed type 2 diabetes or dysglycemia. And then we matched them to women who did not develop type 2 diabetes and dysglycemia. So we matched these two groups of women in terms of their age, in terms of their BMI at the time of developing type 2 diabetes, and in terms of the duration of PCOS diagnosis that they have had. And then we looked back in time. We wanted to see what their prescription of pill was. So within a time window, we wanted to see how many of the women who developed dysglycemia and how many of the women who didn't develop dysglycemia were prescribed with the pill. And as you can see here, of the women who did not develop dysglycemia, nearly 33% of them were prescribed with the contraceptive pill, whereas women who did develop dysglycemia, only 28% of them were prescribed the pill. So if they were not prescribed, so as you can see, there was a 25% decrease in the risk of developing dysglycemia if they were being prescribed the pill. And this is after adjusting for several covariates. So we did realize that there could have been potential confounding by several other covariates like age, smoking status, as I said before. So we adjusted for all of these covariates and we observed still a 25% reduction in the risk of developing dysglycemia if they were prescribed with the contraceptive pill. So what next? What should we do next? Now we have hypothesized using retrospective studies that pill could potentially have a beneficial effect. So ideally, the next step would be to do a randomized control trial. As you can see on the right side, case control studies and cohort studies are slightly lower on the evidence hierarchy. So an ideal next step would be to get potential funding and conduct a randomized control trial to see in a controlled environment if pill conclusively has a beneficial effect on reducing the risk of type 2 diabetes among women with PCOS. We also have biological evidence as well. We also conducted a study in the past, as you can see on the little graph on the lower left-hand side. We found that with increased serum testosterone level, there was an increased risk of type 2 diabetes. So potentially, the pill has a beneficial effect on reducing type 2 diabetes based on the anti-androgenic effect of the pill that Thai said before. So this could potentially be the biological mechanistic pathway using which the pill has this beautiful beneficial effect on reducing the metabolic burden of women with PCOS. Hope you guys understood and enjoyed this presentation. I'll now pass this on to Sophie and Simone, who will open the chat, open the discussion for everyone to discuss about the stigma associated with the contraceptive pill. If you have any questions, please pop it on the Q&A. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Anu. Okay, so thanks again, Anu. As the DAISY-PCOS leaders, we like to bring our experiences of the condition to the conversation and to the medical evidence. And given how common PCOS is and how commonly the pill is prescribed, it's no surprise that there's a large overlap between people with PCOS and people who have tried in the past, are currently taking, or in the future will take the pill. People with PCOS are not homogeneous, and in making decisions regarding our health, we'll consider our own previous experiences of the condition and of taking medications, our experiences of interacting with the health service, as well as the experiences of our friends, family, and community members. Historically, women's health concerns have not been taken seriously by the medical profession, and unfortunately, many of us may have experienced that this still continues to this day. Some people may have a very justified mistrust in some of the healthcare professionals that are involved in their care. As individuals with PCOS, we might not be experts in the conditions ourselves or these medications, but we are definitely experts of our own bodies and our experiences of living with PCOS. I'd like to hand over to Simone now, who will share her own experience of using the pill and reflect upon it in light of what we've learned from today.
Thank you, Sophie. So obviously, as some of you may have experienced, some side effects of the pill can be headaches, breast tenderness, nausea, bleeding between periods, and depression and low mood. There's a few things that I've come across in reading and talking to people such that can help, such as the time of taking the pill. If you take it in the evening, then this can decrease nausea and vomiting. And there's quite a lot of general misconceptions. There's no evidence at the moment of any link between the pill and infertility. The phenomenon of when women stop taking the pill tends to be when people try to get pregnant and to conceive, and depending on the age, fertility can start decreasing at this stage anyway, and also the person may not know that they have PCOS, as with myself, having been on and off various different pills. The evidence of having PCOS has been there along the way, but if I'd found a pill that was right for me and I'd taken it all the way through, I wouldn't have known until I decided that I wanted to try for a family and stop taking it. Another thing that people tend to worry about is weight gain, and there's two different mechanisms. So you've got mild fluid retention and bloating with the estrogen part of the tablets, and this is where lower dose pills can help. So the tablets that have got the lower dose of estrogen in, as shown in the diagram that Thais shared. And then progestin can increase appetite. So if you know what you're taking and you know what's going in your body, you can work around this. So if you know you're taking a progestin, you can try and balance it with exercise. For myself, having worked through various different tablets and pills and not having had very good experiences, being part of this group, I found it really, I wanted to be part of this discussion, because I think if I'd have known things that I know now, having learned from the researchers and the other DAISY-PCOS leaders, that I could have been more of an advocate for myself. It's unfortunate that we have to, but this is what we're here for, to help educate women to be able to go to the doctor and ask why can I have this, why can't I have it, and just be able to understand their experience and why they're getting one type and not another, and the doses in the hormone levels in the tablets, although they seem very small, they can affect you very differently. And if you went to the doctor and got given a contraceptive pill with 35 micrograms of estrogen, and then you had the progesterone in, there are various different levels of the two, and it's just knowing that there's quite a few more that you can try.
And then you can, again, like I said, with the appetite, if you're taking progestin, then you're sort of more aware of the fact that actually you need to make sure that you don't become you get into exercise, or at least just try and take a few more walks. In terms of depression, obviously this is a bit of a controversial subject, because there isn't actually any evidence, or much evidence at all, to link the pill with depression. But personal experience I have with the progesterone only pills is that it greatly affected my mental health, and so I really appreciate how people feel when a doctor's saying that that's not actually happening. You know, they're telling us that our lived experiences aren't real, essentially. But it's like I know personally how it can affect me. And again, this is something that we will touch upon later about what we can do regarding these experiences. And yeah, just wanted to highlight how the sort of mental health and depression aspect, especially if you are already suffering from mental health illness, the hormones can play a big part. But I just want to reiterate that there are a lot of options out there, and it's like we've said already and touched upon, not one pill fits all. There are lots of different aspects that can affect it, and unfortunately it is working through them and sort of trying to find one that's right for you. But if you've had bad experiences, try and take some information from here today to be able to go back to your doctor and have a look at sort of what you've been on and what you might be able to go on, and just become an advocate for yourself. We have to do that. And like I say, I've been on various different ones. I've had various bad experiences, but I believe that with a bit of knowledge, we can all figure out what's right for us. There's a lot of other issues regarding the pill in terms of stigma. And so I'll hand back over to Sophie, and she'll just touch upon, some other issues and myths that people experience.
Thanks, Simone. Thanks for sharing. So amongst the leaders, we've considered some other barriers to pill usage, and some of these, outside of our own experiences of taking them, they might actually be social. Because although we've heard today about the many benefits beyond the pills outside of contraception, collectively they're still referred to as the oral contraceptive pills. Not only does this kind of label feel incorrect, doesn't feel accurate enough to talk about the pill's many uses, it also might contribute to some of the reluctance towards taking them. Given the taboo around sex across society and the fact that the pill is so closely linked to contraception, this might negatively associate it with promiscuity, which in turn might prevent some people from accessing it for its non-contraceptive uses due to fear of judgment from peers and from community members. In a conversation with another one of the DAISY-PCOS leaders I had earlier in the week, she spoke to me about how cultural and family values impacted her experience of the pill and of the conflict between her home culture and the culture of where she lives. Maybe if we could rebrand the pill or shed it of its stigma in another way, perhaps it would make access easier and make more people willing to take it for reasons other than contraceptives. The pill can be fantastic for some people, it can really help their symptoms and help reduce the risk, as we've heard about today. But we also heard that it's not as good for some other people who experience unwanted side effects. At the moment, we don't know who's going to experience the benefits and who would avoid the side effects. We don't have a way of foreseeing that. So it's important that we're all aware of the pros and the cons, and ultimately realize that it's a personal decision and that we should be able to choose which pill or which pills we would like to try and work for ourselves. We hope that moving forward, more can be done to help improve the pills and help foresee who can experience the good aspects and not some of the more negative ones. So I'll hand back to Simone, who can talk about some of the hopes we have for the future before we come back to those questions and give the answers from the start.
Thank you, Sophie. So yeah, as I was talking about just before I hand it back to Sophie, there's so much that
Simone, your audio is a little jiggly.
Needs to be done in terms of actual research and jiggly. Okay, I think it might be my internet. Is that a bit better? Any better now? Okay. So yeah, the actual research isn't there, but the work that Thais and Anu were doing is highlighting what needs to be done, as well as starting to touch upon the subject. And everyone just needs to help advocate research for women in general, as well as women with PCOS. And part of it, I think, is the acknowledgement of our lived experiences as a group, as DAISY-PCOS leaders. We have heard many stories, and it's scary how similar they are, where considering we all live in different parts of Birmingham and as well as the country, and we've had a lot of experience where, okay, you've got PCOS, come back to us when you want to try for a baby. But as we can see from all of the comorbidities, the illnesses that can be linked, such as diabetes, there's so much more that can be done, and that's what our aim is, to try and help to just raise awareness, and just try and get it onto the register of the government. So I will just quickly share the answers, and Sophie will go through them. So.
Yeah, we'll just quickly whiz through the answers to the questions. Hopefully, a lot of the answers have been discussed during the talk, so it will make sense, and then we'll get to our panel discussion where we can answer some of your questions. Okay, so answer to the first question. It is true that women with PCOS are diagnosed with type 2 diabetes earlier than women without PCOS. And if any of the researchers want to add anything to any of the question answers, then feel free. But this is something that is true. Next question. False. The contraceptive pill is not just prescribed to stop pregnancy, and I hope that's one of the main messages that we're going to give to everybody today. It has so many uses. It's a really good medication for people with PCOS, where both the visible and the invisible signs of the condition, as we've gone through. Next question. There are two types of contraceptive pills. That's true. We have the ones that contain just progesterone and the ones that contain both estrogen and progesterone. Next question. Pills which are made up of the same hormones are taken in the same way. This is false. They're all individual. As we tried to explain, some of them have positive effects on PCOS symptoms, some of them have not so positive effects, and these differences impact ways some of them are taken, whether they're taken every day for 28 days or you miss a week. So it's important that whatever pills that you're on, you read how they're taken so you're taking them properly. All right, next question. So the risk of blood clot when you're using the pill is actually lower than the risk of blood clot in pregnancy. So if you experience side effects such as the ones Simone has discussed, of the pill, this doesn't indicate that all contraceptive pills are unsuitable for you, which is why this statement is false. It might just indicate that the one you have tried is not suitable for you. So like Simone was saying, when we're advocating for ourselves, we can try different ones because they might help. The contraceptive pill is free in the UK. That is absolutely true. Next question. Last question, perhaps. I think I think that's our questions up. So I'll hand back to Caroline, who will open up the panel discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Sophie and Simone. Could you stop sharing so that we can see the panel clearly? Thank you so much. Thank you to all our speakers. It's been really interesting just to, I think you did a really good job, Thais and Anu, of really explaining clearly the research, and also Sophie and Simone of giving that personal perspective and that awareness of the broader issues around the pill. So it's my great pleasure now to move into the panel discussion section. And alongside all the people you've already heard from, we've also got two special guests joining us. So I'm really pleased to welcome Caroline Andrews, who is one of Verity's trustees. So Verity is the first PCOS charity, I think, in the world, and certainly the most well-known and within the UK. And Caroline is not only a trustee for Verity, but in her personal life, she's a solicitor around family law and fertility issues, I believe, Caroline. So you've got a really great knowledge base there. And then also Professor Vibke Alt, who's our director of the Institute of Metabolism and Systems Research, but also our lead for the DAISY-PCOS project. And Vibke is herself a consultant endocrinologist at the Queen Elizabeth Hospital at Birmingham. And Amna has been behind the scenes, and I want to really give a shout out to her for being really instrumental in helping put a lot of the images that you've seen on the slides together. So Amna, I know that you're kind of you're in a sort of shared office space at the moment, so you may or may not be able to jump in, but obviously do feel free to answer questions if you'd like to. So I'm going to pass back to Simone and Sophie, who are going to kick off with two initial questions, and then we'll try to get through as many as we can from the questions that you put in the Q&A.
So first question, we know that clots, for example, are a major concern for those thinking of going on the pill. What do you think is done to address the concerns of all women, and not just potentially women with PCOS in the future?
Pardon, could you repeat your question, Simone? It just the audio got.
Sorry, I think it's my internet connection. We know that the blood clots, as an example, are a major concern for women thinking of going on the pill. Mm-hmm. What do you think needs to be done to address the concerns of all women, not just potentially women with PCOS in the future?
Mm-hmm. So first thing is, so talking about the pills on the treatment of PCOS. So we are only, the pills will be an option only for those women with PCOS that are not willing to conceive. Because this will block ovulation. So if it's a woman that is trying to conceive, then the pills are not recommended. So, okay, so we have the pills, but what we need to first address are the contraindications. So there are some main contraindications for the pills, which are the body mass index. So a body mass index equal or above 35 is a contraindication. If the woman smokes, and if this woman has migraine, especially migraines that comes with what we call aura, which are some vascular symptoms as well. And also if this woman has, let's say, an adverse lipid profile, which is, let's say, high cholesterol levels. Okay, so those are the main contraindications. And also, for the ethinyl estradiol pills, we still do not recommend starting on women which are above 35 years old. I've seen that some questions were raised in the Q&A about the age on which starting the pill. And I'm happy to discuss this further on because we have the new generation estrogens, which we can discuss like how they can potentially be used in women above 35 years old. Sorry, so regarding the, I just forgot to mention about the risk of thrombosis. So of course, we always ask if the patient itself has a history of thrombosis or history of thrombosis in the family. This is because so far, what we know is that those women that have a pre-existing hematology condition which predisposes the thrombosis might be those at risk of thrombosis when on pills. So if there is a family history of thrombosis, we wouldn't recommend. Okay, but if this is not a family history and there is no other contraindication, this wouldn't be an issue.
I think from a patient perspective as well on that point, as well as being a trustee for Verity, I actually had multiple bilateral pulmonary embolism and pulmonary infarction in 2019. And whilst I'm classified as unprovoked, it's indicated it's likely to be caused by the pill. I was actually on Yasmin when I suffered it. And I think one of the things that I've really learned since then is know your body and be a powerful advocate. Indicating sort of contraindications, I was 36. I'm not exactly the smallest person in the world. I mean, the consultant cardiologist said I'm obviously fitter than I look because I managed to recover that well. But I'd had a cramp in my left leg for about a week, which felt different from my normal cramps. I'd had some migraines, just put it across in terms of my stressful job. I then ended up in hospital with one collapsed lung and with 3 clots in my heart, which I ended up with the cardiac arrest pads being on me because they thought I was going to go in cardiac arrest at any moment. And I had a massive clot, which was 2 hours away from my brain and would have caused a massive stroke. And I was kicking myself. I didn't actually turn around and say in the first place, thinking I've had a cramp in my leg for a week or so, which didn't feel right. I had migraines, so I just put it off. I'll deal with it at some point. It'll go away. If I'd listened to my body actually more, and because I do know my body, educated women, I know PCOS, I should have done something about it. And I think don't be afraid to go and advocate yourself if something doesn't feel right.
All right, so next question. We've heard about how the pill can be really helpful with diabetes and dysglycemia from yourself, Anu, in people with PCOS. In what other ways and for what other conditions can the pill help us as people with PCOS?
Well, to answer that question, we definitely need more research because this is a question in terms of efficacy. We need to have a tightly controlled trial environment to with extremely long follow-up, because some beneficial effects can only be observed when you follow them up for a longer period of time, right? Like, for example, development of type 2 diabetes. It takes a long time to develop type 2 diabetes, especially when you're trying to look at preventative effects. We need longer follow-up. We need a trial with longer follow-up to answer those questions. But we do have some evidence in terms of prevention of endometrial cancer. So yes, we need more research to answer that question, really.
Just picking up on that point as well, alongside the excellent work DAISY-PCOS are doing, and it is fantastic. This, honestly, I've learned something just sitting here and it's brilliant. So thank you very, very much. There's a huge amount of PhD students looking into these issues. In line with the international guidelines on PCOS, which are currently starting going through their review process at the moment by Monash University. Some work's been done by Dr. Basil Waters out of Coventry and Imperial, and he's looking at what's called harmonising research outcomes. So one of the things that he's looking at doing, that if you ever look at a study with the pill and PCOS, can you make sure that you also look at things such as thrombosis, the impact upon mental health, so that even the smaller scale studies are starting to build in this information as to not just the direct, say for example, contraceptive effect or effect on the metabolic. So there's really, really great information out there, and sort of any researchers getting involved in the future, just keep going, because as Anu said, it's all needed, this information at the moment.
Have we got some questions in the Q&A now that we can address? Okay, so there's lots of...
I'm just thinking maybe we should start with that last one, because I think that's probably a fairly easy answer, but I could be wrong here. Helen asks, how long should you give a pill before asking to try a different brand?
I mean, it will always depend on what you want to achieve with the pill. Yeah, so I mean, this will define on how long you try it. You know, like, is it given for cycle regulation? Is it given for improvement of acne and hirsutism? And obviously, you know, it is important. Acne is usually quite a quick help. Yeah, so we see very good effects between 3 and 6 months of continued treatment. But with hirsutism, it can take longer, 6 to 12 months, sometimes even longer, because obviously the hair roots, the follicles already start to grow under the skin for a while. So if you even take something that would abolish right away the effect of all male hormones, it would still take up to 12 months before you noticeably see an improvement of hirsutism. So acne 3 to 6 months, hirsutism 6 to 12 months, and then obviously cycle regulation pretty much promptly. Yeah, and then it obviously depends on, are there any side effects that lead us to limit a certain pill? Yeah, so there, for example, Jasmine, a pill that has an anti-androgenic, anti-male hormone progestin component that is known not to impact, for example, on blood pressure or body weight. This is why it's a pill we often prefer. Yeah, but obviously, as Thais and others pointed out, it is important to look at contraindications. Yeah, like sort of there is a certain body mass index cutoff. Yeah, so we wouldn't want to give an oral contraceptive to a woman who has a body mass index that is higher than 35 kilograms per square meter. And we wouldn't normally give it to a woman who has severe migraine, yeah, because the pill, the estrogen component, which is in all pills, tends to make this worse. Yeah, and obviously we always take a careful family history with regard to blood clots in the deep veins. Yeah, and also if somebody has lots of first-degree relatives with breast cancer, then you might want to limit the time you're exposed to higher estrogen content pills.
Thank you for that answer. A few questions in the Q&A regarding taking the pill a bit later in life. For example, this question here, which says, is there an age or stage in life when it's too late to start taking the pill? The question author is 37. Also, when somebody reaches the menopause and they've got PCOS, should they stop taking it? Is there something else? So would somebody be able to answer the question about taking the pill later in life?
I personally would think I would not recommend the pill after the age of 40. Yeah, because then we would expose the body to very high doses of estrogen, which would not naturally be expected by the body at this stage of life. Yeah, but up until to the age of 40 or early 40s, it can certainly be taken. Yeah, accepting the contraindications I previously listed. Yeah, certainly I wouldn't take it beyond menopause.
And complementing what Viveka said, I would also say that now with the new, let's say the new generations of estrogens, the bioidentical ones, and especially the third generation ones, more studies are needed to show, so we can prescribe it in a safe way. So to show us the safety of a woman over 40s or reaching menopause to take it. This is because the estetrol, which is the estrogen, this bioidentical estrogen that it's being used on the pills, has also been used for menopause purposes. But we don't have this answer now. And as Anu also said, we need more research. for that. So far, what we have is what Vibeke said, don't take it if you are over 40s, but this is not the end of the world. More research is needed. So it might be that in the future we have like pills that can be used in a later life.
So there's another question. Thanks, Thais and Vibeke. There's another question was asked, one of the first ones. What if someone with PCOS can't take the combined pill? Can the mini pill also help with symptoms?
Yes, the mini pills can help, but depending on the level of androgen excess. So it depends on why the pill is being prescribed. So what usually is done when the patient is not, let's say, eligible for the combined pill is also to give a mini pill. It can be an option, but associated with other medications. As an example, there is a medication called spironolactone, which is basically a weak diuretic medication, but it has an action which it has an effect on blocking the androgen receptor. So you might have an excess of testosterone circulating, but the spironolactone will block, so will not allow the testosterone to act on the receptor, so you will not have the effects. So this can be used in this kind of situation when the combined pill is not the best option. But the mini pill itself alone wouldn't be the most appropriate option. So usually the mini pill associated with another medication to block the androgen receptor, for example.
Whilst we're talking directly about the pill here, it's something that we're quite aware with in Verity. We get lots of questions about the coal compared to the pill. Is there a difference in terms of that with PCOS in particular?
Say it again, Caroline.
Something that I was going to say, it's come up in a couple of the questions, and I'm conscious that we get this asked quite a lot. You've mentioned about the mini pill. How does the coal compare to the combined pill in terms of treating PCOS?
Okay. So let's just remember that the mini pill doesn't have estrogen. So we will not have an increase in the production of SHBG to decrease the levels of free testosterone. So, and that it's a very, let's say, important tool on decreasing the level of circulating androgens. And the other thing is the mini pills that we have so far, the progesterone only ones, they are not progestins with high anti-androgenic activity. So the mini pill that we have available, it has gestodin, which doesn't have a very high anti-androgenic action. Don't know if that's clear. So it's only one hormone there, and this hormone doesn't have a very high anti-androgenic activity. So this is why the mini pill, how it differs from the combined pill on treating PCOS symptoms. It might worsen a bit. It might make it a bit better, the symptoms, but in some women, it might worsen the symptoms. So it depends.
I think we have time for a few more questions. So somebody's asked, can stopping taking the pill cause PCOS symptoms to become more apparent?
Yes, I mean, this is quite typical, yeah, because if you stop taking the pill, then you have the high doses of estrogens are removed, yeah, and then the SHBG goes down again, and therefore more androgens that are active are floating around. So usually within a few months, signs and symptoms return on the skin and signs and symptoms. And obviously then the irregularity or absence of the menstrual bleed might also then reveal itself. Yeah. However, there's also some data suggesting that shortly after stopping the pill, you could have more often ovulatory periods than afterwards. Yeah, so sometimes immediately after stopping the pill, is a good time point to try to conceive if you desire fertility?
Yeah, this question just reminded me of a very common question as well, which is if the pills cure PCOS. So yeah, we come back to this. So they don't cure. So while you were taking it, the symptoms will improve. But as Viveka mentioned, if you stop, they will come back.
From my personal experience, as well as I touched upon earlier, because I've worked through different pills, as opposed to friends who have just taken it for 14 years and just carried on. Between those gaps, that's when I noticed I was having symptoms. Obviously, your cycle can take a while to go back to normal after stopping the pill, but because I was having quite long gaps, it was apparent that it wasn't just because of that. So I was able to realise that there was something going on. But if someone's lucky enough to find a pill that suits them, and they take it for 14 or however many years, and then you get to sort of thinking about fertility and stopping the pill, and that could you could see the symptoms then. So if there are any questions, or you're worried about anything, it's obviously always best just to go back to your doctor and just mention what you've been experiencing.
Just noticed we've got a raised hand from Francesca. Francesca, are you happy for us to allow you to talk, or would you prefer to type your question? I will unmute you, and then you can let us know. Hi, Francesca, go ahead with your question. Just need to unmute yourself. Okay, well, we'll see if Francesca pops back up, but just in the interest of time, we've got a few more minutes, so let's have a look at the questions in the chat. There was a question there, or rather a comment from Helen saying she's been a bit frustrated that her doctors have refused to prescribe the pill, especially since she's heard from today's event that it can actually improve those sort of invisible PCOS symptoms. What's your advice for Helen and other women like her who may, be finding that they're coming up against GPs who perhaps don't have that sort of level of awareness around PCOS and its links to those other metabolic conditions?
I think I would always recommend to talk to the GP and to understand better why the GP doesn't want to prescribe it. Yeah, I think that's a key thing, because there might be medical concerns the GP has in your case, but you haven't understood this because the GP didn't mention them or didn't explain them. So communication always helps best to achieve this. Yeah, and so that's definitely a way forward.
One of the things we often suggest at Verity, and the NHS may hate me for this, but sometimes trying to book a double appointment. GP's appointments are usually a very short time. Asking for a double appointment in advance, and sometimes actually making it very clear to the receptionist when you book that appointment what you're booking it for, so that a GP's got time to actually look at your records when they go into that appointment. So knowing that you have PCOS, that it's about the pill, can actually help that discussion. So the communication can really work both ways. As Wicra said, it's really, really important.
Yes, I support this, because otherwise there is a very brief time slot that will not allow them to have a substantial discussion with you, and they will be keen to talk with you, yeah, because they want that you get good care. That's generally the attitude of GPs, yeah. So there's sometimes some problem we encounter that they don't want to prescribe anti-androgenic pills like Jasmine, because they are more expensive than other pills, yeah. But obviously you can make a point. In particular, this should be tried if you have side effects on other pills, because in particular Jasmine has fewer side effects than many other pills.
Sophie, are you okay to show our kind of take-home messages slide? And whilst you get that up, there is another question which is around PCOS cannot be cured. How safe is it to take the pill for 15 plus years? Is there increased risk of some of the negative side effects with taking the pill for so long? Any thoughts on that question?
Yes, it's safe to take the pill for that long, of course, if you have no contraindications for the pill. And as we've mentioned, studies have shown actually some benefits on women that have taken pills for long. So some of them are those that Anu presented on her paper, and also reduced risk of endometrial cancer, reduced risk of ovarian cancer, apart from the regulation of the cycle. And but also coming back on this, we need more research. And we need more research also on comparing the different kinds of pills out there, especially to focus on, because if you compare which ones, let's say, provides the patient with more benefits in the long term, then we are able to individualize the treatment in a safe way.
Okay, then to round off, Simone and I will talk through some of the take-home messages that we hope you've all got from today's session. So the pills are not just used for contraception. They have got so many different benefits, particularly for us who have PCOS. But it may take some months before the beneficial effects are seen, as was discussed in the Q&A. So 3 to 6 months, sort of as a minimum, might be a time when you should expect to see those improvements.
It is important to know your body and be confident in advocating for yourself. It's your right, it's your body, it's your health. If you really struggle, you might be better off sort of just connecting with a different GP. But if you're not getting somewhere, just advocate for yourself. Unfortunately, not all the pills are not suitable for all women with PCOS, which we've highlighted, and some people have brought their experiences in. And collectively, we need to advocate for more research, funding, and support. So anything and everything that we can do to help the last point along, every little helps.
That's great. So we are at time now. There are a few other questions in the chat. So if does any of the researchers want to address any of the final questions before we wrap up? If so, we've got kind of 30 seconds now, but otherwise I just want to say thank you to everybody who's attended, and we hope that you found today's event useful. As we said, it's a really big topic to try to cram into, what is an hour and 15 minutes. So we hope to have future events like this, but we hope that this was the start of a good conversation and dialogue. Thank you to all our speakers, thank you to our guests, Caroline, and of course our DAISY-PCOS leaders, who are really the people who have driven this event. So thank you to all of you. And as you exit today's event, there should be a little questionnaire that kind of pops up just to get your feedback, and we'd really appreciate if you do feedback, because that's important for us to show that events like this are actually worthwhile and of benefit to people. And also, you can throw in your suggestions for future events, etc. So thank you, everybody. But I'll just give a minute now in case there's any final thoughts from anybody that wants to pipe up.
I think just to say thank you, everyone, for all your time and dedication, particularly on a Saturday as well. It's people like you that really help the understanding PCOS move forward. So as a patient, and from Verity as well, thank you very much.
Brilliant. Well, thank you, everybody. We will take the remaining questions that we've got, and we'll try to sort of build those into future events where possible. So thank you all, and enjoy the rest of your weekends. Tuning out from IMSR, DAISY-PCOS, and the DAISY-PCOS leadership team, and Verity, of course. Thank you. Bye-bye.